Tested, 2023 BMW XM challenges your expectations. BMW takes its storied sub-brand into uncharted territory with a 644 horsepower, 3-ton plug-in hybrid SUV. Let's pretend the letter M doesn't exist. In some alternate universe, where the alphabet skips right from L to N, this confounding new SUV would simply be called the X. That would be a pretty good name. With X, you've got some intrigue, X-Men, X-Files, X-Games. Whereas, for BMW, the letter M is freighted with expectation. When you see that rakish M flanked by tricolor stripes, you expect scalding performance, restrained but sporty styling, and visceral responses. You might not always get all of that, but it's what the badge promises. So what do we make of an M-branded 6,054-pound SUV with fat black billboard stripes and standard throw pillows on the rear seats? The last time we saw an XM this bizarre, it had hydropneumatic dampers and was a Citroën. The XM is BMW's first M-exclusive model since the original M1, and for a moment, it held the title of most powerful production BMW ever. That superlative now belongs to its sibling, the 738 horsepower XM label red. On the internal combustion side, the XM gets a 483 horsepower twin turbocharged 4.4-liter V8 with a cross-bank exhaust manifold that makes it sound like an off-world chainsaw felling trees across the Kepler exoplanets. Downstream from that prime mover, the torque converter is replaced by a wet clutch and a 194 horsepower electric motor that is, like a Taylor Swift audience, permanently excited. The motor makes 207 pound-feet of torque but has its own gearing to multiply that number to 332 pound-feet at the input to the 8-speed automatic transmission. All told, the XM musters 644 horsepower and 590 pound-feet. That would be more impressive if there weren't 19 other companies offering vehicles with more horsepower than that. And even in terms of intramural bragging rights, the XM's horsepower advantage over other BMWs is essentially cancelled by its weight. The X7 M60i rides on the same 122.2-inch wheelbase as the XM but offers 3 rows of seating to the XM's 2 rows and weighs 216 pounds less than the flashy hybrid. The XM will win a drag race, hitting 60 miles per hour in 3.4 seconds, but the X7 is a mere 0.4 seconds behind. And the X7 M60i's base price is just beyond $104,000, while the XM starts at $159,995. Order the Bowers & Wilkins sound system, $3,400, Silverstone and vintage coffee leather interior, $2,500, and the M Drivers package, $2,500, and you've pretty much run the table on options and arrived at our as-tested price of $168,395. Highs, useful EV range and power, decadent interior, 60 miles per hour in 3.4 seconds. We're guessing that for the XM's intended audience, that number isn't shocking or dissuading, rather more like a financial moat ensuring exclusivity from the X5 driving hoi polloi. As much as it's an SUV, the XM is a declaration of decadence. It's Fashion Week in Milan and Art Basel in Miami, a piece of sculpture you're not meant to understand right away or possibly ever. Consider the textured headliner flanked by fiber optic light guides and 100 LEDs. It's awash with softly pulsing blue light when the car is plugged in and sends the red and blue hues of the M logo streaking toward the back of the car on startup, a living organism riding along above you. The blocky 3D BMW logo in the center of the 23-inch wheels looks like some kind of Lego piece, snapped on as the final step. The charging cable lives in a custom duffel bag, leather and quilted fabric with a gold-colored zipper. The M Lounge rear seats include those throw pillows, which you'll want to store securely before any Nürburgring record attempts. The controversial grille is proudly outlined in LEDs, and the optional night gold metallic trim seems inspired by the stripe on Starsky and Hutch's Gran Torino. As you may have realized by now, the XM doesn't do subtle L, except maybe when it's in electric mode. Thanks to its 19.2 kWh battery, which enables 29 miles of range at 75 miles per hour, and relatively robust electric motor, the XM is perfectly capable of running around town as an EV. But it always feels a bit wretched to toggle into EV mode and know you've got a 483 horsepower V8 that's just catching a ride. Much more satisfying to push one of the red M buttons on the steering wheel and cue all the available horsepower. In EV mode, 87 miles per hour constitutes top speed. With the V8 joining the party, 90 miles per hour is yours in 6.8 seconds. So yes, the XM is quick, but an 11.7 second quarter mile at 119 miles per hour places it in arrears of its electric counterpart, the 9M60, which dispatches that task in 11.5 seconds at 120 miles per hour. And, should you neglect to charge the XM, its EPA estimated 46 mph combined drops to a mere 14 miles per gallon for gasoline only. Lowe's already ceded its title of most powerful BMW ever, polarizing style, disjointed driving experience. Moreover, the XM driving experience is discombobulated in a way peculiar to this particular hybrid architecture. This reminds me of a Jeep Wrangler 4Z is not something you want to think while helming a $160,000 BMW, but the XM suffers from the same flummoxed drivetrain behavior as the Jeep, as the two share a similar ZF electrified 8-speed transmission. There's just too much going on. In this case, we have a V8 with turbos that are on boost or not, a wet clutch, an electric motor with its own gearing, and then an 8-speed automatic transmission sending power onward to all four wheels, via another electronically controlled clutch to manage torque front to rear and an M Sport rear differential handling torque distribution side to side. There's an abruptness to the shifts and throttle response that betrays the complexity of the setup, and sometimes it seems like there's an estrangement between the computers running these disparate systems. For instance, we blundered into the rev limiter more than once when using the shift paddles because the XM took so long to consider the ramifications of an upshift. Other times, it would upshift promptly, so there's no adjusting your timing. The transmission gives you fastballs and change-ups, and an occasional slider. The XM suspension tuning is better, with the softest mode delivering a decent ride despite the steel springs and gigantic wheels. The 48-volt active anti-roll bars, which disconnect on straights, are likely a big boon to the ride, and rear axle steering enables preternatural agility at parking speeds. Put the dampers in Sport or Sport Plus mode, though, and the suspension goes all brittle, certainly more than is warranted for a vehicle that posts a 0.92 gram skid pad number with the available 22-inch Pirelli P0PZ4 summer rubber. It seems like the confusion over the XM's mission extends to BMW itself. The company probably would have been better off embracing the rolling lounge vibe and bolting in some cushy air springs. And if that seems anathema to the M Division ethos, so are throw pillows and a 6,054-pound curb weight. Verdict: an M car aimed at a very specific audience that is not us. To make sense of the XM, you've got to understand that, despite its name, it's not aimed at enthusiasts. It's an art object with a respectable gauze of performance. Damien Hirst does launch control. BMW still makes M cars that will rearrange your internal organs on a racetrack and keep a low profile on the street, but this isn't one of them. Thankfully, this isn't a zero-sum game. The manual transmission M3 didn't need to die so that the XM could live. So maybe let's appreciate the commitment to aggressive weirdness that results in a machine like this while simultaneously hoping it doesn't represent a philosophical sea change. The world already has one Citroën, and that's probably enough.